Greetings, traveler.
Hey guys, Shady here with another meta update. We've had the new arena for a little less than a week now, and I've got a fairly good idea of how to play at least a couple classes. I've chosen to narrow the testing down to a couple classes. I usually tend to do this just to get data faster as opposed to spreading everything over 9 classes, but particularly so because I think that each class has its own identity more so in this kind of arena than we had in Rastakan's Rumble when KNC and Ungoro was still in and we had these much stronger neutrals. So classes have a bit more of their own identity, and we'll be talking about 3 of them. We'll be talking about Rogue, Hunter, and Priest. So maybe not the mix you had expected. I mean, Rogue probably pretty strong, but Hunter and Priest maybe not. I would like to include Warlock, but I haven't really figured it out yet, other than, Abyssal Enforcer is a good card, but I would rather have a bit more experience and, knowing what's good before I include Warlock, but that's definitely on the list as well. So let's start with Rogue. We all know Rogue's very powerful. Yeah, in my stream yesterday, I was just sort of messing around and I picked 3 rogues and they all went 11. And I'm pretty sure had I paid more attention or tried a little harder, at least 1 or 2 of them would have gone 12. So yeah, Rogue is in a very, very good spot right now. We're going to quickly take a look at the decks and you'll see some commonalities, but there's also some differences, which is to be expected. It's Arena. The first thing that we look out for is the Evil Miscreant. It's a very powerful card and it tends to just carry the run. Now, one of the runs did not have any Miscreants, so you do not need the Miscreants, they're just very powerful. The reason why this deck still went 11 is that Rogue right now does really, really well because it gets a lot of good cards and it's a very tempo heavy meta, and Rogue really likes that. If you have cards such as Backstab, Sap, Deadly Poison, all these cards that are pretty good for tempo but not so much for value, they really shine when the meta is this fast. So cards that I have been really appreciating in Rogue, first of all, Deadly Poison. You can see that here, 2 poisons here, 3 poisons here, and 2 poisons here. So the reason why I like Deadly Poison is there's less 3/4s out there right now, so you tend to kill 3 drops with Deadly Poison. That's not a super rare occurrence. People draft Blink Fox and Hired Gun and such. But it is also an excellent combo activator for, say, a turn 4 Miscreant or an SI Agent or whatnot. So 1 mana card, very nice for combo activation. Maybe even a Bladed Cultist. This deck in particular, if I can find it here. This deck had 2 Deadly Poisons and 2 Ringleaders. So on turn 3, you would dagger on turn 2, and turn 3 you'd equip the poison, play the Ringleader, and it's just very, very nice. So based on how many 1s and 2s you have, you can go a little lighter on the 3s. You see that these decks are much, much lighter than you would normally draft back in Rastakan's Rumble. So I'll show the deck lists a little bit so you can have a look. The early game is just, it's there to make sure you have that dominance over the board. And then I don't pick that much removal. This deck had a Sap and a Shadow Strike. That's it. We had 2 Yetis here, Soldier of Fortune and Squidface. So a couple of those mid-range bodies on 4 really help. Then you see for the rest, there's really not that much here, right? There's a Commander at the end. There's a Dalaran Crusader. I'll make sure I'm not blocking the view at all right now. It's good. But yeah, not heavy at all, and it's enough. You can just finish the game on it, especially if you have Evil Miscreant, because it creates more value. This deck as well. This deck's a little heavier. It's got a Scribe Commander, and then it's got some 5s. Yeah, you can see that this deck, it has a little less early game. That's just sort of how the draft panned out. Cards like Perdition Blade also good. Anything that can ping damage, fan as well when they go wide. Just assume that your opponent's going to swarm you. So anything to deal with that swarm. I had 3 Shurikens and it didn't feel terrible. Not too light. I just used them. They kill 3/2s. People have 3/2s again. Triple poison, and then a little bit of 2s. I would have picked a bit more, but I just didn't get it offered. So I had the Shurikens as a replacement to just kill their stuff rather than play my own 2s. And then the difference is that this deck had a bit more mid game, so this deck handled a little slower. And then this one might have been the heaviest, right? Because it has Ravenhold, double Scribe, double Streetwise. And the reason why this deck survived is it had 2 saps, backstab, 2 poisons. So very, very good kit and some decent early game as well. I don't think you want to go this heavy most of the time. And it's funny to say that this is heavy, right? But we have a 7-drop, 2 Scribes, 4 5-drops. That's a lot of stuff to finish the game with, on top of having 2 Miscreants, which also provide value. So generally speaking, I wouldn't go this heavy. But the deck just flowed really well because we had double sap, double poison, backstab, and some early game. And you know the Miscreants also help you recover tempo. So quite nice. All right, well, I don't want to spend too much time on Rogue. We already talked about Rogue a little bit. The most interesting class is about to come up now. It's Hunter. So why do I focus on Hunter? Well, you can see that we had this deck 112, this deck also 112. Out of 6 Hunters, we've had 2 12s, an 8 and a 9, a 4 and a 0. Now the 0, I may have messed that up a little bit, and the draft wasn't so good, but the 12s, the 9 and the 8, it's because there are so many rogues and to an extent some warlocks. Hunter is a great counter to this. This used to be the same back in the day when people would draft mage no matter what. Hunter also lines up nicely versus mage. It's because these classes aim to also outvalue you, mage and 1, and rogue tends to use their face as a resource early, so being able to ping them down with the hero power later is very good. So what did these Hunter decks look like? We can go back to my old Hunter guide where I used to have 2 ways of drafting: a more mid-rangey Hunter, Curve Hunter, and a Smork Hunter. I don't think that Smork Hunter is very easy to draft, nor should you aim for it, but it so happened that one of the Hunters I drafted just went that direction. I tried to draft mid-range and the deck didn't really come together. So let's look at the mid-range variant first and see what that looks like. You can see that this is the mid-range variant. You can see even though we're playing mid-range, there's very, very high emphasis on this early game. It's because if you do not have the board, you can't really do much. The differences will start to show a bit later. I think this deck had like 5 1-mana plays and then still, 3/2. So a number I've been aiming for is 8 1-2 mana cards combined for Hunter specifically. For Rogue, I think it's a little bit more flexible just because backstabs and poisons and saps later on, they recover tempo, so you're not so focused to I need to have this number. For Hunter, it feels pretty good to have about 8 1-2 mana things you want to play on curve. Then premium 3-drops I've been picking quite highly. You can see that this deck has 2 animal companions. These generally come quite expensive in the draft, meaning you have to skip good cards for them. But I don't really want to play bad 3-drops. That's still the same as before. Now, you can see that we don't have as many 3s as you would normally draft. Actually, no, this one got 5, but I'm not going to compensate with bad 3-drops. I would rather have, an extra 1 or a 2. So my main focus is 8 1-2s and then just pick premium 3s, probably up until you have 5 or maybe 6. That doesn't mean you need 5 or 6, but you shouldn't be afraid to pick up 5, strong 3-drops. Then a card that is really good right now, Unleash the Hounds. I don't skip this right now. Unleash the Hounds. It is perfect for the meta we are in. People spread, things have low health, and it doubles as reach later on in the game. It's super useful. It saved me so many times. The 0-3 Hunter had 0 Unleash the Hounds, so there is maybe some connection there. But all the other Hunters were offered Unleash the Hounds. So it's not super hard to get right now. You'll see that one deck even had triple Unleash the Hounds. So it's just a snap pick for me right now. And it does so much work because, as we mentioned, people go wide and it also helps you kill people in the end because it has reach. Then turn 4, we still want a reasonable amount of plays. We got the Yeti, the Dwarf, Houndmaster, Ogre Mage, and Hosen Healer. So 4 to 5 things to play. There's also a Marked Shot. People are pretty high on this. I think it's okay. I definitely skip it in the draft. I picked this one to try it out, and it didn't really overwhelm me. There was no, it wasn't that crazy good. But don't be afraid to pick it. Just, if you could use the other thing for your deck, if it fits your curve, probably want to pick that over the Marked Shot. Then you can see not much late game at all. We have an Ogre on 6, we have 2 5s plus Bomb Squad, and then Gladiator's Longbow. Now this deck had a big amount of 4s, like I think 6 4s in total, plus the Marked Shot. So if you don't get as many 4s, you can add another 6 or you can add another 5. You do want some stuff to play, but even this being the mid-range variant, you can see that curves are so much lower than they were back when we were in the Rastacon's Rumble meta. So get used to that, change your mindset. Don't be like, oh, I need to have 2 Violet Worms and stuff. That is, Violet Worm's not in the pool, but you know what I mean. That is no longer how we draft. There is less reactive stuff, meaning the games don't go as long. You don't need as much late game. Then, the very interesting one, this is the Smork Hunter. So up until pick 20, I tried to make this mid-range, and it just didn't come together. The main thing that happened for me is I looked at my curve, and I just did not have that many 4s at the time. I think I had 1 4 drop, and it was at pick 20. But I did have a very low curve here. Let's see, 1, 2. Let's skip on the Hunt and Potion Vendor for now. 1, 2, 3. Then this is 6, 7, 8. Plus the 2 1-mana cards here, so that is 10 plus tracking. The tracking's not really 1, but the main thing comes from, instead of having the late game at the end to finish the games with, there are 2 kill commands. You can see that we're a little lower. No, the 3s are still fine, right? So yeah, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 are very similar to the mid-range deck, but the differences appear here, right? This Maexna, we may as well not have had it. It was not necessarily a pick I wanted, but the other 2 picks were 10 drops, so I had to pick her. Then we have this 1 5 drop, which also just sort of randomly found its way into the draft. It's not something we need. And then, yeah, we have 3 4s, but triple Unleash the Hounds, once again, very good, and double Kill Command. Kill Command is not a card I would recommend for the mid-range hunter, just because the mid-range hunter would prefer to just be on board and use the board to smork. But when you have this low of a curve, Kill Command is quite good, especially with the triple Unleash the Hounds. There is an Ironbeak Owl in here, and I think this one, let me see if I grab the correct one. Is there an Owl in here as well? I know I had a double silence run, which was really good. Yes. So we had an Owl and a Spellbreaker in here. This was an 8-win hunter. Silence for me is very, very, very good right now in Hunter, because there is this big flood, meaning that when people play a taunt, they generally don't just have the taunt on the board. There are other things. So Freezing Trap and Deadly Shot both become a lot less reliable. Especially with Freezing Trap, you get incentivized to trade a lot, and Hunter wants to push face. So having Unleash allows your opponent to just go wide, and if they go too wide, you punish them. And having the silence means if they want to just save themselves with a taunt, say an Apple Bomb, which is a phenomenal silence target, you essentially gain 9 face because you don't have to punch through it, dealing 5, and they don't heal. So it's essentially like the Spellbreaker's text is Battlecry, Pyroblast your opponent's face. Very, very good. So 1 to 2 silences I pick very highly in Hunter, and then I just try to look for that curve where it's about 8 1 to 2 mana plays and premium 3s. So 5 if I can get them. If it's 4, it's 4. It's whatever. And then you just pick some 4s, some 5s. This deck was pretty heavy because we got 2 scribes. So that's just how the draft worked. The draft took us this way. But it did only go 8, whereas you look at the 12-win one, it's a bit lower curve. So I do think that the lower curve is better, and just pick some more 4 drops rather than, being stuck with scribes. But it's not like it is a bad card, and if it comes cheap, which it usually does, you can still take it. It's just that I do prefer having the lower curve. All right, so that's it for Hunter right now. Then the last one I want to cover is Priest. Now I have not played that many Priest runs. I sort of was trying to figure out what worked. But then I wanted to share this with you guys already, because this is what I'm going to be testing this week, because it is how I used to play Priest. And this is a very fun way to play Priest, at least for me. Let's start off by saying that a strategy that I used to employ back when Arena was wild, I liked to get a lot of early game, lots of 1, 2s, and 3s, and then go lower on the mid game and then just pick heavy value cards. I did this quite successfully in Druid, and my high value cards were Ironbarks, for instance. And then you're a Smork Druid, and then you have low mid game, meaning in the mid game all you'll do is like Power of the Wild or just play a 2 and a 3 drop on 5, and then boom, you have 2 Ironbarks to finish off the game. That doesn't work that well right now, and this is the reason why. This guy, Burly Shovelfist, is so good when your opponent just dumps all his mana into a big boy. You can just, I don't like to draft Furious Ettins anymore. I had a Soggoth and it was terrible just because this lines up perfectly with this thing. So any high health, low damage big boy I am staying away from right now. Shovelfist is too punishing. It's a good card, so people will pick it, and it's just too punishing. Now, what this means is the Druid might struggle with that strategy that I like to do, but Priest can still do it because we can pick our own Shovelfists, or we could pick Mind Control, and Priest just has high value things it can fit in the deck. Now, Priest can feel really bad if you don't get on the board, and there are way less cards to help you get on the board. Now, if you get, 2 Dragonfires and Potion of Madness and Shadow of Madness and whatnot, then you can probably play a more traditional control Priest, but odds are that most of your Priest drafts are not going to have those cards. So what do you do then? You go really, really heavy on the early game, especially for a Priest. You can look at this curve and you can say, wow, this is a little crazy. Now, when I'm testing stuff, I always like to go a little crazy and then dial it back a bit. So maybe this curve will get a little heavier over the course of the next week. But you can see that we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 1-2s, and then we can add Egg, we can add Holy Smite. So we get a very, very low Priest curve. We pick a card like Shattered Sun Cleric, which is normally something you don't really pick in Priest. Talon Priest is amazing, super good card. And then Sneak is just a stealth drop, which is easy to buff. So yeah, you can see that it was a very, very low curve, at least for Priest. And then at the end, there is this value where we have the Shovelfist and Mind Control. Now this deck went 8, mainly because I sort of tanked it to 2 and 2. At the end of a long stream, and then the next day when I was fresh, I just won 6 in a row and then lost 1 in the end to a Rogue. Rogues are still good. Rogue is still the best class, but I think the best way to counter them is by flooding, is by going very, very aggressive on the early game, because most Rogue players, they won't be as aware of the meta, so they will just have good cards and miscreants, but they won't be so aware that they have to push super hard for the early game as well, because they will win anyway. I think most Rogue players will still build their curve too heavy, just because there's been this big shift in the meta and not everyone is adjusting. So this is the time where you can abuse that, where you do have the knowledge that it is okay to have a much lighter curve. You're not going to run out of steam as much, especially if you follow the advice where you either play Hunter, where at the end you can just hero power where you're not running out of steam, or if you pick the Priest and you have a couple strong late game cards. You see that this deck just had Shovelfist, MC, Sea Giant, and then 2 6-drops, right? The Worgen and the Tunnel Blaster were picked up just because the AoE is still useful. Any type of small AoE, but we talked about that earlier already. Unleash the Hound's very good right now. Fan's pretty good right now. Perdition's Blade, that's pretty good right now. If you're playing Mage, Volcanic Potion, anything that can reset the board early where your opponent just doesn't run off with the board, quite good. All right, guys. So excuse the rambling. I know it's not super structured, but I want to get content out to you guys as fast as possible to help you with your arenas. And I don't know when the Rogue nerf is going to hit. I'm assuming it's not going to take so long. So I would rather just get a video out now than wait and make sure it's very properly structured and edited and fancy, because usually when I do that, I publish a video and then the nerfs hit at the same time. I am intending to make a very well structured meta video once the meta has stabilized, once the nerfs for Rogue have come in. I'm assuming that after the big first round of nerfs, not so much is going to change. So then I will do proper testing for, another week or so, maybe 2 weeks, and get a nice polished video out to you guys. All right, well, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.